Just learned that the Australian energy market operator has suspended the, quote, impossible to operate electricity spot market until further notice. Well done, Labor. Well done, Greens. Well done, Teals. Well done, Scott Morrison. And well done, Matt Kean, who is now begging New South Wales households to again conserve their energy and their power tonight. Hope you're all proud of the energy nightmare your green policies are inflicting on this country. Speaking of which, a good friend sent me this post from Facebook doing the rounds this morning, and my instinctive thought was, this is satire, surely. The writer, apparently a resident of Sydney's oceanside suburb of Manly, which is, of course, the spiritual and political heartland of the Teal independence, wrote this comment, and I quote, "Many houses on the northern beaches were without power this morning, and there will be more blackouts to come." Wait for it. "I know it's a bit cold, but it's a very small price to pay as we finally take real action on climate change." And you'll notice that the words climate change are highlighted in a suitably reverent greeny tealy type colour. And then she goes on, "and ensure," wait for this, "and ensure we never have bushfires, floods or earthquakes ever again." Now, I do know that in this day and age it is increasingly difficult to separate satire from reality, but this Facebook post was, alas, no joke. It's real. And sadly, the sentiments expressed so eloquently in it are far too real and far too pervasive, particularly, but not exclusively, amongst the young and impressionable who have suffered 2 decades of climate brainwashing. In a nutshell, and I place the emphasis firmly on the word nut, that Facebook post, which was responded to by many people, sums up the monumental and frightening stupidity of an entire generation of young Australians and arguably, if the recent election is anything to go on, a vast chunk of the adult Australian population who have also decided to embrace this lunacy. Let's just run through the logic of what that post said. So basically, in this age of global warming, as the planet becomes a burning and an uninhabitable inferno, thanks to the evil coal mines in the Hunter Valley and Queensland and elsewhere, not to mention your gas-guzzling SUVs, it is not only important, but it is also worthy that we go without the basics of light, heat, energy, or I guess even hot food, during this unusually cold weather. You see, in this brave new teal-coloured world, it is now a virtue, because of global warming, to freeze your socks off in order to pay penance and appease the weather gods so that they will bless us by taming nature. The religious zeal with which the author of that post appropriates traditional religious concepts of suffering and self-denial in order to pay homage or to appease nature is startling. In that one post, centuries of enlightened thinking, science, philosophy, physics, and theology whoosh, go hurtling out the window. This new religion, or teal zeal, as you might want to call it, is in serious denial about a number of indisputable and rather pertinent facts. Firstly, the current cold snap, which has seen record snowfalls, record early snow falling, and snow even reported on beaches in southeastern Australia, not to mention tumbling cold records from Queensland to Tasmania, does not provide any support for the climate models and predictions from the early 2000s. Models that were themselves built solely on the IPCC-sponsored theory of anthropogenic global warming, and models and predictions that claimed our children would never know what snow was or ever even see it in their lifetimes. Models that were themselves especially and solely part of the IPCC's sponsored theory of anthropogenic global warming. and models and predictions that claimed these kids would never know snow. Indeed, even our most prestigious scientific body, the CSIRO, as recently as 2017, was recommending we phase out the resorts at Kosciuszko. Yet those same resorts actually opened earlier than normal this year and are enjoying terrific snowfalls. I'm sure they don't want to shut down. In a mark of how unlikely those predictions seem right now, kids pulling on their mittens and beanies to go frolicking down at Perisher this weekend weren't even born when the climate change cult was confidently predicting snow was a thing of the past. The refusal to deal in observable realities culminates in the ludicrous pronouncements in that Facebook post that by cutting down on energy use, Australia will never again experience bushfires, floods or earthquakes. Laughably, many a passionate eco-warrior actually believes such rubbish, with some, such as the climate-obsessed World Economic Forum, the mob who want to introduce the Great Reset, whereby you will own nothing but you will be happy. Well, even the World Economic Forum is convinced that even natural geological events such as tsunamis are somehow brought on by, or at least worsened by, climate change. As crazy as this may sound, it is no sillier from a logic point of view than any of the net zero commitments embraced by all our major political parties, including the Liberal Party under Scott Morrison and the Nationals under current leadership of David Littleproud. Put simply, do we seriously believe that by partially or even totally reversing the 1.5% Australian share of the 3 to 4% of man-made emissions that make up the Earth's atmosphere, in other words, if my maths is correct, roughly 0.06% of the Earth's atmosphere, that we are suddenly going to usher in a magical world where no cyclones, hurricanes, bushfires, high tides or floods ever occur? Or are we so vain that despite any serious scientific proof, we simply cross our fingers and trust that spending trillions of dollars decarbonising our industrialised world will have a blissful, harmonious and beneficial impact upon the climate patterns of our planet, returning us to some fanciful, imagined Club Med-style Garden of Eden of endless blue skies and balmy breezes? Apparently so. For nowadays, pretty much every type of weather other than Noosa Blue is swiftly categorised by the media as an extreme weather event. Sadly, adults who should know better are happy to play along with this conceit, tut-tutting about, it was never used to be like this, forgetting, of course, that bushfires, droughts, floods and cyclones have always been part and parcel of the Australian way of life and always will be. Sadly, that post was real and not, as I had hoped, a piece of satire. But equally sadly, it was merely an accurate encapsulation of the new gospel according to Labor and the Greens and the Nationals, a religious zealotry that is as delusional as it is fraudulent. And boy, is it going to cost us dearly.